Hey chess friends, National Master James Canty III here with Chess.com, and today we have game of the day. With the white pieces we have Stockfish, and with the black pieces we have Dragon. Now again, they going at it. 960 is Blitz, the chess championship, and it's 5 seconds increment on top of the 5 minutes. So 5 minutes, 5 second increment. But Stockfish is playing Dragon in this one. It's another long game, like 72 moves. So we're going to talk about some key points in this game, definitely. But it's Stockfish versus Dragon. And if you see here, it's 960. All the pieces on the back rank are all mixed up. So the theory's not there. You can't rely on your favorite opening or your Nightorf that you looked at yesterday. It's not going to work here. This is Chess960. So let's see what happens. Right, D4. Okay, cool. You see that in classical chess. The rules are still the same in 960. You can still castle. Checkmate obviously wins the game. You still need to worry about the center, develop your pieces, like get space, trades, tactics, all the stuff's the same. It's just no theory. So now after D4, right, you would expect, maybe D5, knight C6. I mean, there's so many moves that you would play. This is the last move you're probably thinking about. H5. It's almost a troll move in a way. Like H5, it's just so funny. You only see this in 960. H5 is probably moving the knight this way. You could also get the queen out. Of course, you can't go here, obviously, because of this. But to see this, it just puts a smile on your face. D4, H5. After D4, H5, C3, which is allowing the bishop to get here. Again, one good strategy to use in 960 is get the bishops out and the queen. Figure out where they are going quickly, because if you don't, later on they get buried, and we've seen games of what happens when they get buried. So after C3, G5. Okay, G5. So this all-out attack in a way with knight G6, queens opened up, looking pretty nice for black, but also white's just fine as well. So G3, we have a G3, and then D6. After D6, opening up a bishop line, we have bishop to C2. So this one actually is going to start very slow. They're just going to develop pieces, just like any classical game or any opening. Get the pieces out. Worry about your king, start attacking afterwards. Let's see what happens. Knight to C6 develop, knight A3 develop, strange development, but he did want to put the knight on D2 because it blocks the bishop, which makes us get here a little bit longer than we wanted to. So knight A3, bishop D7, bishop D2. You see how quickly he was able to develop knight A3 and bishop D2, as opposed to knight D2, it takes an extra move, and then move the bishop, then castle. But after bishop D2, E6, castle queenside, bishop F6, E4, and castling. Now, if you take a quick stock here, white, now, of course, engine is like, oh, it's equal, right? Equal, but always have two engines, right? Have the engine, what we're looking at, and then your own engine as a human to say here, hey, what does this actually feel like? What does this actually look like? And here in this position, white has the entire center. We got the center, which is huge. If you have the entire center, a lot of times you already have a very slight space advantage here, and you can actually feel that here. You would rather be white probably in this position. This is not really going to work if you can't play C5 to actually bully this. So honestly, white's doing just fine, but black is too, with pure calculation and understanding the ideas. King B1, King B8, right? Always play King B1, says fine gold, and King to B8. Absolutely, right? King B8, knight to C4, develop, put the knight on a better square. They say knight on the rim is grim or dim, whatever you want to call it. Just know that it's not supposed to be there, right? So the knight moves to the center, or closer to the center, C4, bishop to C1. And this move is very interesting. He's saying, hey, you know what? The bishop has done its job. In fact, it's my worst piece because the pawns are all on the same color, or most of them. Most of my pawns are all on the same color of my dark square bishop. I'm going to tuck and roll here, keep it right here to defend. Not even to just defend. The biggest thing is actually opening up the E file and being able to use it, and maybe even moving my knight to D2. So after bishop C1, knight C to E7, and H3. Lots of maneuvers here. Lots of maneuvers. Now it's going to get spicy, but right now they're just filling each other out here. Okay, let's do this. See what you do. We got to develop doing things they know they need to do anyway. H3, bishop to C8. Same idea. You know what? You're going to do it. I can do it too. It's fine. You want to push, I'll push too. A3, right? A3, which is a definitely interesting move here. A3, maybe preparing B4. Also a waiting move. There's sometimes better waiting moves, but A3 is definitely a move here. Knight F to D2 seems like a move that we would all play. But Stockfish was like, aha, that's why I'm an engine. A3, rook D to F8, and then A4. Felt like a mouse slip, but it's the engine. Weird. But okay, A3 and A4, rook D to F8, A4. And then rook to D8, right? So they're going back and forth almost in like a draw fashion. He's like, you want to draw? And he's like, oh, now you want to draw? Well, then we're going to not take one. Knight F to D2. Now he goes there with the knight, but the pawn's on A4 now. And then E5. And then d5, locking it up, making it very solid here. Pretty cool stuff. Now, as you see, the space advantage is very, very, you can see it. It's pretty obvious in a way, right? It's pretty obvious how much space that white has here with the bishop coming to e3. Maybe even some wildness like b4, moving the king, bishop e3, after moving the knight maybe to b3, rook to b1, knight a5, maybe put the knight on c6 after a b4, b5, potential sack first, think later, like grandfather Tal says. Right, there's a lot that can go on. So after d5, you just have space, but you have ideas and you have options. After d5, there's g4. G4, nice move, trying to, hey, let's get some space. I need some space, says black. White says, not today, no you don't. h4, locking it up even on the king side as well. Now the bishop hits a brick wall. This bishop hits a brick wall. The queen hasn't moved. Look at black's position. Now, engines give equal. Oh, it's equal. But as a human, you're like, I'm crushing here as white. Black can't move anything. The real pawn break that he has to get off is his f5 move. When even then, we still have this square on lock. h4, bishop to g7, backing up with maybe some f5 intentions. Rook G to E1, putting in, probably preparing for it, or maybe just not taking it at all. So after Rook E1, there was Bishop H6, just putting some pressure on the diagonal, trying to figure out what they want to really do at this point. And after Bishop to H6, there was Queen F1. I like how White's pieces, yes, they're only on like the second rank. Same for kind of like Black. I mean, they had theirs on the 6th rank up here, which is their 3rd in a way. But here, they're all coordinated and they're working together. Chemistry is what we call that. Queen to F1, very nice, and then Queen to G7. After Queen G7, what do you think Stockfish did here to to get it started here? What do you think this is going to be? It's white to move. What would you do? Here's the move here. In fact, the move was A5. And we live, or at least it's about to get live. And the reason for this is if you think about, for players that know opening theory, or if you don't, you can actually just Google it. You can go to Chess.com, click on openings, click on King's Indian attack, the KIA for short, the reverse of the King's Indian defense. With the white pieces, you usually see that on the king side of the board over here. When you're pushing H4 and the kings are castled in a classical game, kings will be castled, and you're really just trying to mate them. It's a favorite of Bobby Fischer's, actually, King's Indian attack. Right, so these are very, very strong attacks. This reminds you of that in reverse in a 960 game. Amazing, because now the knight can somehow, maybe with the b4 action, maybe move this knight, get the queen involved. Like, that white is about to attack black on the king side, with this being the king side here, where his king is. You know that it's coming, and black can't really stop it. And that's how you see a lot of times in the King's Indian attack. Very awesome. So let's see what happens. After A5, black says, okay, we got to go for it. If you're going to attack me, I'm not about to just sit here and let you do this to me on national television. So after F5, there's E takes F5. E takes F5, taking it, just liquidating, because F4 probably would have been very annoying. And then Rook to F8, and you put the Rook maybe on F3 after doubling. Yes, it's sacrificing, but a lot of times that's what you need to do in these King's Indian-like structures, something like a King's Indian. Knight takes F5. After knight takes F5, A6 and B6. He locks it up, just like you would see in the King's Indian attack. Knight to A3, rerouting, so we can get the pieces involved. Look at what white does here. Rook D to F8, bring the queen out. Oh, it's getting crazy. We're trying to mate. This is not mate, obviously, because the bishop's going to defend, and you're hanging the pawn, so you need to worry about that. Black plays queen to F7, just kind of piling down here. But you're asking black, I mean, what are you actually going to do here? Right, white plays 94. He's like, yo, I'm going to get the G5 square, especially after taking H6. Maybe play Rook F1 or E2 to defend F2 because your queen's here. But black does have a little bit of uncomfortable pressure that you would see on the C file in the King's Indian attack right here on the F file, actually. So it feels like there's some uncomfortable pressure. Bishop takes C1. King takes C1, which is an interesting move. Pretty nice. Stockfish was just saying, I don't want to move the rook back, which I guess is kind of cool, actually. But king takes C1, and now black plays this move that really will catch everyone off of guard. Like, everyone gets caught off guard here. In fact, it's the #1 move on the engine, from the engine. Okay, well, you know how that's going to go. King takes C1. Here it is. Knight takes H4. He just sacked the piece. He sacked the piece. Now, if you look at this for a second, before you actually take this piece, or say, can I take this piece, you have to think about black sacrificing a piece here in this type of position where they have less space and not a lot of stuff going on for the black position. You should know that something's up here. It's really not probably the greatest sack. Let's see. Knight takes H4, takes. Now, if you take stock here, this you actually can't capture. So if you ask yourself, what is the compensation? What is the compensation for them sacrificing the piece? Well, let's see. In fact, you do have the file, but you can't really use it. I mean, this square, yeah, I can let you have it, but what are you going to do with this square? Even if you put the knight here and I go rook e2, there's nothing to do. So the big thing, the compensation actually is the outside h-pawn. And maybe trying to bully this and trying to get something going at the cost of a piece sacrifice. Now here, Engines is like, yeah, you're up a piece, but it's like +1, which is like, wow, it's a legit sacrifice. As a human, this don't look legit at all. This looks like game over, start a new one. Knight takes h4, bishop to d3, knight to g6. So pushing the h-pawn, we have that on lock. You can't really push the g-pawn, and you can't take on f2. So I'm not convinced as a human that the compensation is actually compensation. Knight to g6, knight to c2, rerouting, maybe going to b4. h4, knight to b4. Knight e7 says, wait, hold on, you're not going in here, not today. And black says, you know what, queen b5. Now let's see what the reroute's going to be. Queen b5, h3, pushing them past pawns, must be pushed, and rook to e2, defending the f2 pawn even more. Maybe we're going to see a knight move. And after queen g7, that's why knight to g3 can be played, because the f2 pawn is now defended, because that's what the knight was doing. Very strategic. Sometimes you can read what the engine's doing, and sometimes they play a3 and then the next move play a4, like they did in this game. But knight to g3, rook to f6. Bishop e4 with the knight's reroute as well. This was a strange move to me, and I was like, what is he trying to do? And then it dawned on me afterwards, when you see after queen f7, rook f1, rook d8, they wanted to move the queen back to d3. And it's like, oh, wow, why do you want to move the queen back to d3? It's not really doing its job anymore. Like, we're not knight b5 doesn't work. So it's like, okay, let's reroute, let's try something else, which is very smart. Rook h8 and b3. Rook to g8. Here we have about like 30 moves left, so we're going to fly through some of this. Bishop to h1, bishop d7, and king to b2. Rook f8, knight e4, attacking the rook, and rook to f4, followed by queen d2. Reroute. It's a reroute. Now, black did sacrifice a piece, and for this to still be going on, that's some type of compensation, especially engine being as strong as it is here, right? Dragon, Stockfish playing white, Dragon playing black. Absolutely ridiculously strong. But it is some compensation, but it still took time to maneuver this game around. Bishop to c8 and c4. Rook to g8, rook c1. And then after rook g6, here it goes. This is the crucial moment right here. Here's the thing about being up a piece. When you up a piece, or like you got some compensation, or they sacrifice the piece on you, here's one thing you can do back. Well, you know, you gave me the piece, but I can give it right back to you. c5, knight takes c5, absolutely. And at the time that I want to. That's the greatest thing about being up a piece, is you can give it back when you want to. Knight takes c5 after b takes, queen takes. Now this is looking crazy for black. Let's see the finish. Queen to d8 and d6. What a move. Opening up the bishop line like a beast would, because a beast could. d6 and rook takes d6. Followed by, now this move right here is a killer move. Let's see if you can find it. This one, I don't think many people, in a classical game, maybe. But this is a difficult move to find and figure out. What would you do in this position? Here it is, guys. The move is actually bishop to c6. What in the world am I looking at? Beautiful move here, because it's threatening queen b5 immediately. If you go queen b5, he actually just blocks with the rook. So he wanted to block with the bishop instead. So bishop to c6, knight takes c6, queen b5. Queen b5 check and king a8. A very nice move. And then after king a8, there's knight takes c6, rook takes c6, and queen takes c6 with check. King b8. All right. Time the rook lift. We need more pieces. Can't just do it with your queen. So rook to c5. After rook c5, the only way that black could really defend here, this is a longer line, is rook b4 and then play queen f8 after rook to d5. This is what, you know, another engine gave here, and just looking at some analysis there. But actually, Dragon just said, you know what? Look, this didn't go my way. Bishop takes a6, and after queen takes, we just up a piece. White's just up a piece. Queen d4 check, which looks cool. Seems like he's getting it back, but in fact, he's not getting anything at all. Rook c3 defend, queen b6, and he could have just traded. But actually, I think the weird thing is these pawns are kind of annoying. They're kind of annoying, to be honest. So he's like, you know what? Yeah, we'll just bring it back. Get a few checks in there. Queen d7, e4. Rook to c6, and queen a5. After queen a5, queen to e7. Now, you want to be careful here, because your king still isn't the safest. But you are up a rook. If you do this with accuracy. Rook c8, and after rook takes c4, you have nothing. Queen d2, rook c2, and what do you do? That's over. I mean, like, everything's cleaned up here now. We don't have to worry about much anymore. Queen h6, we hit him with a check. Queen b6, Yeah, this one's over, right? Just take the queen. Okay, take the queen, and then the rest is history as we fly through the rest of these moves. King A3, right? Rook C2 check. And the finale, if we can get here, game over, right? Quick way to do it, Rook C4, and then Rook A4, Rook D8, and Rook A8, mate, and we great. That's another one. That's a very nice game there. Space advantage, squeezing, moving the pieces backwards, retreating, then going forward again. A lot of push and pull there, piece sacrifice. And that's what you see here in these kind of games. Hopefully you did enjoy today's game. I'm National Master James Canty III here with Chess.com, and I'll see you guys on the next video.